What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Son of a Tech once again, and today I have a review of the Sapphire RX 580 Special Edition. It's very similar to the Nitro Plus, just essentially going to be some color changes. We'll go into the performance, of course, the temperatures, the frame rates, and the overclocking potential right after this. Welcome back. So the GPU itself is not dissimilar from any other 580. You have 2,304 stream processors on a 14 nanometer architecture. The advertised clock for the boost clock is 1430 megahertz, which is higher than, of course, stock, which is around 1340. It has a 256-bit memory bus with GDDR5 clocked at 2100 megahertz for an effective clock of 8400 megahertz. It has 8 gigabytes of DDR5, and the outputs include a single DVI-D, 2 HDMI 2.0Bs, and 2 DisplayPort 1.4 ports, keeping in mind that the HDMI will only go up to 4K and the DisplayPorts will go up to 5K. Now the DVI-D is going to be significantly below that. Next we have the power, and talking about power here, you have a 250 watt TDP, and that can be used up quite quickly if you start overclocking. It has a single 8-pin to support this with an additional single 6-pin, and you can just basically be prepared to have that on your power supply, and at least 500 watt power supply. I recommend quite a bit more than that, probably around 650 to 750 to keep, around 50% load on that power supply. Now, the cooling itself is done with dual X fans, and they are ball bearing. Now, with those, we do have the fan noise, and we're going to play that right now for you guys, so go check it out. Welcome back. So the fan noise isn't that bad, but you may have noticed, and we weren't actually running any games, you may notice sometimes with these RX 580s, especially from Sapphire, that there is some coil whine, and this is primarily when playing games, especially for some reason DirectX 11 games, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it's something to keep in mind when you're talking about what this GPU is going to sound like when you're playing next to it. I'm actually pretty disappointed that Sapphire didn't fix this for their special edition, as it comes at a price premium. But other than that, let's talk about overclocking. Now with overclocking, we had that kind of two-profile system. So there's a BIOS switch on this GPU, and you can flip it from the front to the back to go into a gaming mode. And that's going to just essentially set the GPU at the 1430 megahertz boost clock, with the memory being at 2100. But if you want to adjust this yourself, you're going to have to hop into the Radeon settings in Global Wattman to overclock some more. Or if you want, you can use the Sapphire Tricks software. I recommend just using Global Wattman. It works just as good, and it's already going to be on your system if you've installed the drivers properly. Now, hopping into that, you're going to basically have the option to turn the power all the way up. I definitely recommend doing this for gaming, as well as cranking the voltages pretty much as high as it'll let you. It's not going to really let you go beyond that unless you go and load a modded BIOS, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff you're going to have to deal with as far as that goes, because that's getting blocked by Radeon settings, which is a huge disappointment that they followed the path of NVIDIA with that. But that aside, they also are going to have voltage control for your memory, and you can turn that up as well. However, I didn't really recognize it doing anything as far as increasing the overclock overhead, and I didn't really notice it affecting temperatures that much either, because the cooling solution is actually pretty good. Now that being said, with this we did get up to 1475 megahertz on the core clock and up to 2200 megahertz on the memory overclock, which is actually not really any better than the Sapphire Nitro Plus that I had. So the special edition is essentially a blue version, and that's gonna be about it. If you guys are interested in collecting things, especially PC hardware, then it's a neat object, but other than that, you're not going to get much performance out of it. What I did use this opportunity to do was to test some stuff that I hadn't tested before, so let's get into some benchmarks. First of all, we have Time Spy, and at the stock clock, we had a score of 4,562. I definitely recommend overclocking because with the overclock, we did bump up a couple hundred points in Time Spy, up to 4,755. Now, if we bump on down to some real world games, we started off with Just Cause 3. When I was Googling, I noticed that nobody had really tested the RX 580 in Just Cause 3, so I decided to do that. Now, this is on the highest settings possible, the highest preset possible, I should say, and the average frame rate was 103 FPS, and the minimum was 85. This is the 99th percentile. So, no problems here at 1080p. And I don't think you're really going to have to worry about 1080p gaming with an RX 580 8GB. This is proven to be true once again with Wolfenstein the New Colossus, where on the mine Uber above Uber, I forgot the actual name of it, the average frame rate was 108 frames per second, and the minimum was 82 frames per second. The only game that we saw some issues with, and this is probably more along the lines of what I would call game optimization or dev problem here, it was the Evil Within 2. They've always had issues with PC ports, and in this case they had an average FPS of 63, which is awesome, above 60 FPS. However, the minimums were down to 55 frames per second, and it was noticeable. So I'm going to have to say that at this point, you're going to want to go ahead and check out my Evil Within 2 best settings guide, and over there I actually have some options that show which settings will improve frame rate, and it's not that hard to get that extra 5 frames per second by compensating with some settings that you might not actually visually notice that much. So that's kind of where we're at with the RX 580 8GB. It is pretty much covered here all the way. We'll talk about temperatures, I guess, here at the end. We did see the fan noise, and the highest I ever saw the card get up to while fully overclocked, if I cranked the power settings up and so on, was about 69 degrees Celsius while playing, I believe it was Wolfenstein. So it can get, close to that 70C, but you're not going to hit any sort of throttling concerns until 84 degrees Celsius on graphics cards, or on AMD graphics cards at least, and you're just going to be good with this cooling solution. So don't worry about that, all good there. Wrapping this up, I think you just drop yourself down to a Nitro Plus if you're not worried about getting that light blue color theme. But if you really want that color theme, then go ahead, click the Amazon affiliate link in the description below and pick yourself up a nice looking RX 580. I know I'm behind the game on reviewing the RX 580 for games, and I get that, but I wanted to show you guys maybe something that was a little bit cooler. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. If you didn't, you know what to do. And I hope to see you guys over in my Discord over on whatever, with the description link down below, or come play some games with me over at twitch.tv/sonothetech_, where actually I am currently playing on the RX 580 8GB. I've been playing a lot of Warframe, and I'm happy to report that it does play Warframe at 4K 60 FPS maxed out. So that might be another video that's coming up, because I thought that was pretty cool. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.